Hello guys, it's Gemma Fisher here from Daybreak Dogs, coming to you with today's Friday Fisher Fix. And today I have my small puppy, who we've definitely decided his name is going to be Todd. So Todd is with me, so if I suddenly get distracted by a puppy grabbing at or generally making noise in the background, then you'll know what's going on there. Some of you have been following him this past week since he's been with me in his own private Facebook group, where you've been watching me do things like some of the socialisation experiences that I do with my puppies, the habituation lessons that we go through. So you are more than welcome to come and join us there and see how I raise my puppies. So if you have a puppy at the moment, or you have a puppy planned in the future, and you're just like, oh, you know, how do I get started with things, then do come and join us. Highlights of this past week include him being introduced to my adult dogs, and that's something that I often get asked about. And what we did was we just set up a camera and we filmed what was happening. So hopefully that's quite a useful resource to any puppy owners out there. Alternatively, they're just really cute, so you can come and visit for that too. Right, so today's Friday Fisher Fix is one that is very close to my heart. It's about how to keep your dog safe and happy during fireworks season. Now, sadly, fireworks season is not controlled by the law at the moment, and for dogs that are frightened of fireworks, we know that they can go off at any time throughout this this period. So if that's you, I'm sorry. I feel your pain, because my late dog Kai, actually towards the end of his life particularly, was very, very stressed about fireworks, and in fact actually damaged his eye trying to get into a small space to get away from the horrible big bangs. So so yes, I do feel your pain, and I am have had a dog that suffers in the same way. So I've written a couple of blog posts about this, because one of the things that I'm aware of today might be quite a long Facebook Live. So there might be bits and pieces that you think, oh yeah, I really liked that, but I can't quite remember what she said. So do feel free to go to the blog. What I'll do is I'll pop a link to it in the comments, so that all of the things that we talk about today, they're in the blog post, so you'll be able to find them, because that's basically what I'm using to talk to you today. So first and foremost, best piece of advice I have is having somewhere where the dog believes is really, really safe. Now, that is individual to each and every dog. So for some dogs, for Kai, for example, I'm going to use him a lot for my example, he would like to get into his crate, but he was also the sort of dog that would hang out in his crate if nothing else was going on as well. So the crate, as far as he was concerned, was a safe place and somewhere where he was very comfortable and happy. One thing that bothers me slightly is that people might be putting up crates up and down the country and putting dogs into them that really don't like the crate in the first place, and then obviously it's not going to have the desired effect. So that's one really important thing. Make sure it's somewhere that your dog deems safe. And that might even be somewhere quiet and dark, like under the dining room table, or you know, in a quiet corner somewhere. So just go with whatever your dog tells you that they think is a safe place to go. One thing that I read just today on Facebook, actually, which was terribly alarming and heartbreaking more than anything, was that somebody had posted about their experience that I think we would all agree that it's a good idea to keep dogs in whilst there's fireworks going on outside. But this lady, she knew her dog was worried and you know, had kept everybody in, but she just slipped outside to put the bin out, and a firework went off next door, and her dog bolted out past her, and that was the last time she ever saw him. So it just breaks my heart. I can't imagine how you would, you know, be able to sort of reconcile with that. So just bear in mind that when these, and some of them are really loud, when these loud bangs go off, and if they're very, very close, ideally if you have a dog that's worried, that you might speak to your neighbours and say, look, if you are going to be setting off fireworks in your back garden, could you just let me know and give me a heads up? That would be helpful. But obviously we can't, you know, we can't cover all houses in our neighbourhood like that. So keeping them in and keeping them safe is really, really important. With that in mind, because dogs can bolt in terror and they can end up quite a long way away from where they started, think about making sure that your ID chip is up to date. That they have one indeed, which is obviously a legal requirement, and also now the law says that we must have microchips in our dogs, and make sure those details are up to date as well. I recently went to do my adult dogs and found that they were at my past address. So I went in and updated them just recently. Didn't we, Pup? Because that way you know that if they do get found a long way from home, that they're going to make it back to you. That's really key. So things that you could actually potentially put on your dog. Okay, so I don't know if any of you have heard of Thundershirts at all, or whether or not you've had any experience of using them so far yourself. So Thundershirts are an idea that has come from Tellington Touch, and I have had people that swear by them, and then I've had other people that said that they were a waste of money and that it wasn't worth it. I think what I would say is that each dog is an individual, so some things will work for some dogs and then they won't for others. So that's one thing worth bearing in mind, that it might be a bit of a pain trying to find that combination of things that helps your dog and comforts them, but it's not as simple as going, right, I'll use this and your dog will be fine. If it was, trust me, I would make that information available all over the World Wide Web. So Thundershirts, you can, I think, mostly pick up from your local pet shop. I've certainly seen them in sort of the bigger pet shops particularly, and they work like a bit of a vest, which has Velcro to attach and keep them on. Little bit like a very well-fitting t-shirt or well-fitting coat on your dog. And I found with my dogs, I have. Kai was the one that was the most frightened. Jade and Diva are not big fans of the bangs and would rather that they didn't go off, please and thank you. What I found with them, all three of them, if they had it on before the bangs started, so if we put them on sort of late afternoon before it started to get dark, then quite often that would work quite well. But if we came in and it was already dark and maybe some bangs had already gone off, it didn't help settle them down after they had maybe been a bit worried, but it was quite a good preventative measure. I've known some people who say that swear by them and their dogs just go off fast asleep with them on, which is, you know, an ideal alternative to them getting stressed and worried. So Thundershirts can be quite useful. Obviously, because we're so close to the big event, so Saturday night, well, probably there'll be some events close to you, no doubt, tonight and tomorrow night. If you can't get hold of a Thundershirt, it's worth Googling Tellington Touch body wraps, and there's lots of advice out there about how to use just a simple, either a horse bandage, or maybe you've even got a bandage in your medical kit somewhere at home, and using that as a way of replicating the thing that the Thundershirt does for your dog. So that can be really, really helpful too. One really useful thing that lots of people I've recommended this to have told me that it's really, really helpful is using some sort of a plug-in. This one is for a pet remedy. The other one that I recommend is for Adaptil. And both of these, if plugged in, like ideally you would have plugged it in about a week or so ago so that the scent was building up in your home. Hi Andrea, hello, just seen that she's joined, hi. But if you can only just put it in today, then you know it will start to build up, and certainly the pet remedy I found kicks in quite early on. And basically it's a plug-in just like you would use with, say, one of your household scent things. So these work really quite nicely. The other thing is Pet Remedy do a spray, as do Adaptil, and Adaptil do a collar as well. So spraying that around can be really helpful with dogs that are feeling a bit worried or a bit stressed. And as I say, because Kai was so worried, I tried all of these things. I can't tell you for sure that one thing made the difference, but certainly I think maybe it was a combination of things that were helping. So that's the plugins and the sprays that we've just talked about. One thing is, if your dog is very, very worried, it's worth going into your vets and talking to your vets about what are the latest things on offer. And I can't advise you on that, but my local vet is Watkins and Tasker in Yatton. Hi to everybody there, and they're really, really helpful around fireworks season, because they don't want to see dogs being injured because they have got out or hurt themselves around the house, that sort of a thing. So their role there as well is to advise us on ways that we can prevent things happening. So go in and consult with your vets on the latest things available. And as I say, just bear in mind that in all the time that I've been dog training, I haven't found one thing that will cure it, and it's normally either a combination of things, or, like I said, it's getting the things in early. So you don't start that evening when the fireworks are going off, but what you do is you start late afternoon before it starts to get dark. You get your Thundershirt on, you've got your plug-in, you've got your sprays and things going on, and that helps make the difference. Again, I've also tried things like homeopathic blends and tablets in the past, specifically something called skullcap and valerian. Now they either do that in a tablet or a drop form, so depending on how your dog prefers to take things. If you can get a tablet down very easily, that might be the best way. Otherwise you can put drops on their food. Those I've been told by my homeopathic friends that those things are better built up in the system, so they wouldn't be an ideal thing to help you over the next couple of days, but certainly thinking about, the trouble is, as I say, it's not like it's just going to be confined to the next couple of days, so if you were able to start it now, then that might help your dog throughout later on in the month. So one of the things that I did, not this New Year's Eve, but the previous New Year's Eve, and do try and do when I know that there's going to be a lot of fireworks around, is Kai told me that if he was really, really excited and we were playing tuggy or were doing some sort of a training game, that the rest of the world could be blowing up, and he was fine with it, because he was getting to play with his mum and he was really happy doing that. So I think, well, maybe it was the New Year's Eve just gone. I probably needed ear defenders to do this. I didn't have them on, but probably should have done. But I basically had the dogs all in the one room, and I took it in turns to get them out and do some training. Most of the demo dogs understand they're not supposed to bark whilst they are watching and waiting. But that one night, all rules were off, and I was like, you lot make as much noise as you like. And what that did was they were all very excited. Kai didn't notice the fireworks because he was too interested in what was going on with his mum, and that for me was a way of alleviating his stress. I do have a video clip around of that somewhere, which you'd have to turn the speakers down for, but I'll see if I can dig that out, because that was a loud New Year's Eve, but it did, as I say, have the desired effect that Kai wasn't worried in that respect. One other thing that Kai liked to do, which brought him some comfort, one of his most favourite places in the world was to be in the car and being driven around. So where he would be particularly comfortable would be in his crate in the back of the car, and if we just drove around, we could drive away from anywhere that was particularly noisy. And you know, maybe it's an extreme version for some people, but certainly after he'd injured his eye, I was quite worried about him, and driving him around a little bit worked for me. That was fine. So again, it only works if your dog loves the car and loves to travel in the car. That's fine, but if it doesn't like the car, that's not going to work for them. So you do have to look at each of them as an individual. So I think that's most of my bits and pieces on the what to do when sort of thing. Let's have a quick look, because I had a couple of other points. Oh yes, okay, so one thing that does help is to plan ahead. So if we know that the fireworks aren't going to start going off until it gets dark, we really want to try and get our walks in during the daylight hours. Because then it means that even if you've got a dog that's bomb-proof, and I do have friends that tell me that their dog is absolutely bomb-proof and it's fine, do you know what? I just don't want to find out. That one time where maybe there's a particularly loud bang, or there's several things happen at once, I would just much prefer that my dog is safely indoors, where they might not be very happy, but they're not going to bolt and get away from me and potentially hurt themselves. So for my money, I would only be taking my dogs out during the daylight hours and making sure that they are safely indoors when we get home, when it gets dark. Also, towards the end of that lead exercise, if it's sort of getting into early evening, I would probably stick with lead exercise as well, because then at least you have hold of them, and it makes sure that if somebody is, you know, stupid and lets off a firework very early, then your dog again is going to be safe. We talked about the ID tags, didn't we? And the microchipping. Let's have a quick look. See if there's other bits and pieces. Oh, raw bones. So I'm a raw feeder. Well, I mix between raw food and dry food. And you don't have to be necessarily a raw feeder to potentially do this, but if you were to go to your local butchers and say, could I get hold of a couple of raw meaty bones? Kai loved chewing on bones. You know, that was one of his most favourite activities during his life. And if I could settle him onto a bone before the fireworks started, he would quite often happily keep chewing on it throughout the fireworks, because it kept his attention. Again, not necessarily something that will work if your dog is already frightened, because by the time they're already frightened, really we're just in management management phase, and we're looking just to keep them safe and out of harm's way. But yeah, if you can get them settled on it first, then raw meaty bones are a good way to do it. Local butchers is a good place to go. Otherwise, companies like Natural Instinct, Nature's Menu, if you go into, say, your local Pets at Home, somewhere like that, you'll find that they have a freezer, and there's some in the freezer there that you can get hold of. One thing that as Kai got older, he certainly built an association between it started to get dark and he didn't want to go out into the garden. And I was comfy. Like, if he had an accident overnight during like the fireworks season, that wasn't an issue from my perspective. But also I knew that as a trained dog, he wouldn't want to do that for me either. So just see if you can get them out for a wee in the garden before bedtime. Maybe feed them a slightly earlier meal as a result, something like that. Then it just means that everybody's safe and comfortable and can settle down during the night. Straightforward things like having the curtains shut, having the TV up loud, maybe even having a radio going in another room. So really it's just as loud as it can be in the house, so that the fireworks noise isn't so obvious. So obviously if your dog is home alone and the lights are all off, the curtains are open and a firework goes off, they're really going to notice it. So doing simple things like having the curtains shut, etc., that can really help them as well. Oh yes, I had in my notes, X Factor's a good one. Certainly, I don't know if anybody's been following X Factor at the moment, but yes, there are some rather dubious people that have managed to stay on X Factor, and if you turn them up at that point, I doubt your dog they'll maybe want you to turn it off, but they won't certainly be noticing the fireworks. Okay, so one of the pieces of advice that is it has two camps, is whether or not you should comfort your dog if they come to you and they're frightened. Now, I think this is one of those things where, again, it's a personal thing. If your dog is frightened and it goes off by itself and it goes into its crate, would I follow that dog and pull it out and want to give it a cuddle? No, I wouldn't. I think that dog should be best left alone. Maybe I throw in some treats or something like that if it wants to eat. Chances are it's not going to. But mostly I'm going to leave that dog, alone. If, however, you have a dog like my Jade, my 5-year-old border collie, she's like a big slinky blanket, and when you sit down, she likes to slink over you like a blanket, and she enjoys being cuddled. So when she gets anxious around fireworks, and it doesn't always have to be fireworks. There have been times in the past where she's a particularly sound-sensitive collie, and it might be that she's noticed like a crackle on a loudspeaker or something like that, and she's suddenly like, oh my God, we're all going to die. When she comes into me looking for reassurance, I give that. That's my personal preference, that she comes in, she says, Mum, I think this is a potential problem, and I tell her, yeah, I see that you're worried, but I think we're going to be okay. I'm not panicking myself. Here's the really key thing. There's a difference between comforting your dog and then making the fear worse by going, oh my gosh, are you all right? Are you going to be okay? Oh no, it's fine, don't panic. Because obviously that's quite different from that reassurance of the adult that goes, yeah, I see that you're worried about it. I'm not dismissing it, but I think you're going to be okay, and it's all much more matter of fact. So I think in some respects you have to define what comforting your dog looks like. And as I say, if it's the reassurance type and acknowledgement of the fact that your dog is worried, all for that. But yeah, try not to go OTT on the, oh, you're going to be fine, because that potentially does make them start to worry. The key thing really is that the reason your dog is frightened is it's an emotional response. It's not a response that is led by the brain thinking, and it's not a behavioural type thing. It's actually because there's this emotion of fear. And the thing is about this, you cuddling them and making, it's not going to reinforce that fear, because you can't reinforce emotion. you can certainly do things to help them cope with their fear of noise and sort of sound sensitivity. But as I say, at that point, you're not going to be reinforcing that fear. They are already fearful. The best you could hope for is that they're not too worried, and actually you giving them a bit of reassurance makes them go, oh, okay, all right, it's going to be okay, and they relax and they stop panicking. Sorry, that's just Toddy moving his toy bag around. So yes, so that's my take on the whole, do I comfort my dog, do I not comfort my dog thing? Because as I say, some people don't like cuddles. Do they, my love? So like this one, I don't think he's going to be a big cuddler. He's got a big thick coat. He likes to be sat on my lap, but he doesn't particularly want to slink over me like Jade does. So go with what your dog would normally be doing, as opposed to suddenly start acting out of character yourself, because again, that can be a bit panicky. Okay, I think that's probably about it. Maybe I should just say one word on Socialisation CDs of fireworks noise. If you are wanting to try and do something about your dog's fear, unfortunately, we've now left it too late. You're not going to be able to start desensitising your dog to the sound of the fireworks at this point, because you cannot. They're going to be going off all of the time, so we can't predict them, and we can't particularly help our dogs at this point. One thing you can potentially do, as I will be doing with Todd tomorrow night and potentially tonight, is I will be baking up a batch of my liver cake. And I will be, every time he hears a bang goes off, he's going to get a little piece of liver cake. So for him, hopefully, he's going to avoid having that same fear that Kai did. And the bang is going to equal a really yummy treat, as opposed to something he needs to be worried about. So yeah, so that's one way that you can potentially deal with a young dog at this stage. But as I say, if you've got a dog that's already worried and you would like to desensitise them, personally I think it's worth getting in touch with a really good behaviourist to get some advice on that. But as I say, at this point you're in the crisis management mode, if you like, and it's not a time where we can actually get very much training done on that one. Okay. Right, so as I say, apologies. I know it's been a really long video, but there's quite a few things. There's bits of advice and things out there on the internet, and sometimes it's just difficult to know what is the best thing to do. And by all means, if you're unsure about any of the things that I've talked about in today's video, just pop a comment in the box below. Or equally, if you found something which you found particularly helpful with your dog to be able to help them, then please do leave a note, because it would be really nice to build up as many resources as possible to help animals that are frightened over the fireworks period. And certainly you'll see on this Facebook page, you will see me post links to petitions where, like, I don't want to be a killjoy. I'm not a fan of fireworks myself, but I don't want to be a killjoy if other people enjoy them. But if we could have some legislation about when they're going to be let off, so that we could prepare our animals. And I understand war veterans can find the fireworks season very, very stressful, because, as I say, some of these big loud firework bangs, they can be terrifying, and they can trigger memories of things that they would rather forget. So yeah, ideally we'd have some legislation on that, but I know that there are many very good people working on that, and if I see any petitions, I will certainly be sharing them on this page. So as I say, if you have any extra ideas that you'd like to pop in the comments, please do. One thing I would say is, when you are commenting, you may have a dog that is absolutely fine with fireworks, and I am thrilled for you, really I am. But when you have spent time with a dog who is miserable, is absolutely terrified and miserable, and you cannot bring them any comfort, what you do not need to hear at that point is somebody telling you that you shouldn't make a fuss of them, and you've reinforced their fear, and it's your fault that they are sad and upset and worried. I don't believe that to be true, and even if you do believe that to be true, I don't think that's necessarily a particularly helpful view. So in the comment thread below, just keep it friendly, guys, and just make sure that you know, you're courteous and respectful of other people's opinions of how they want to live with their dogs. My feeling as a dog trainer has always been, I will support you in the journey that you have with your dog, but your journey might look very different to mine. You may have different expectations of your dog, and that's fine. We're all different, we're all individuals, but there shouldn't be any judgment for my money in dog training. We should all be looking to support each other, because it can be difficult sometimes, don't you think? So yeah, so that's something worth bearing in mind too. Right, so as I said at the beginning of the video, if you would like to keep progress with my young man, who He's kind of gone to sleep now. Shall we see if we can find you? There we go. He's had a very busy morning, haven't you? I know, and we've got a very busy afternoon planned for him as well, which he doesn't know about just yet. So if you'd like to keep track of his progress, the Facebook group is the Puppy Diaries, and it's Elmsley Hot Toddy. Toddy for short, to his friends. By all means, come and join us there. It'd be lovely to have you there. And if you'd like to sign up for more news and information of the things that are happening at Daybreak, if you look on the Facebook page, you'll see there's a little button that says sign up. So do click on that sign up button, and we'll keep in touch via that way as well. If you have any questions for a future Friday Fisher Fix, pop them onto the Facebook page, and with a bit of luck I will be able to answer your question for you shortly. Anyway, it's been lovely spending time with you today. Keep safe this weekend, keep your dogs safe this weekend, enjoy them as much as you can, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Alright, take care, bye bye.